I'm Jana, and today we're going to talk about corals. Now, when I said corals, many of you may have thought sea plants, like a seagrass or an algae, but what if I told you corals aren't plants at all? What are they then?
Well, corals are actually made up of hundreds, even thousands of individual polyps. Polyps being small organisms which use stinging cells on tentacles to stun prey. All of these polyps are the offspring of one original polyp. Once secured to a structure like a rock or shipwreck, coral polyps reproduce asexually by creating thousands of copies of itself, which are fused together with one digestive system. But the polyps cannot obtain enough nutrients from their tentacles alone, so they form a mutualistic relationship with an algae called zooxanthellae. The zooxanthellae photosynthesize and give some of their nutrients to the coral, while the coral provides a home for the zooxanthellae, close to the surface where sunlight is optimal. Corals have a very narrow temperature range for survival. Their environment can only fluctuate by 6 degrees Celsius, and although they can survive above or below that temperature range, it can only be tolerated for short periods. As global temperatures rise to more and more than what is expected, corals begin to bleach, which is when a stressed coral releases its zooxanthellae, and because this zooxanthellae provided pigment to the otherwise translucent coral, the coral in its absence appears to be white. This does not mean the coral is dead, but it does place the coral colony at a high risk of mortality, as the coral's primary source of nutrients has been taken away. But why should we even care about corals? Well, they are considered a keystone species. This means they are at the core of an ecosystem, and if something hurts that species, the whole habitat is affected. Corals are the New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago of the ocean. They take up less than 1% of the ocean, yet they provide a home for over a quarter of its organisms. So if coral is at risk, a quarter of all marine life is at risk.
But if how coral helps the entire ocean is still not enough to convince humans to protect it, then maybe its linkage to medicine will be a driving force in its conservation. By observing the reef's visitors, scientists have discovered that dolphins can possibly reduce their risk of infection by rubbing against a certain coral that produces anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial mucus. This has led scientists to hypothesize that because other organisms are already utilizing coral's health benefits, that it's highly probable a medical treatment for cancer, Alzheimer's, and many other diseases is found in coral. Scientists are already hard at work, but in order to discover these treatments, coral still needs to be around. So next time you're snorkeling on a beautiful coral reef and want a souvenir, remember that those polyps have the potential to save your life. And just observe, don't disturb.